And we're live. Hello there, I'm Thomas Marr from FormulaSpy.com, and I'm joined this evening by Luke Murphy. Hi, Luke.
Hey, how's it going?
How are you this evening?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Yeah, a lot of stuff to get through. It's been a busy week.
Considering it's the third race in the third triple header of the year, there's a lot to get through this evening. It's full on silly season at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what you get for having to condense a season's worth of stories into 5 months or something like that. It comes thick and fast, and I don't think people were quite prepared for it. But that's just the way of the world, the way of how the pandemic has knocked things into a more compressed kind of period of time. So yeah, just gotta deal with it and get on with it, haven't you?
We're actually roughly. I think this race actually marks the halfway point of the season, and considering that we only got going 2 months ago, it's amazing just how short this season is. But yeah, as I said, we've lots to discuss, and I suppose the only place we can start is with Mr. Sebastian Vettel. He has found refuge, and there he is talking to Lewis in the paddock earlier on today. It's good to see Sebastian smiling again, isn't it, Luke?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think there'd be many people who would have wanted Vettel to be off the grid altogether. I mean, everybody knows he's had an up down couple of years, but I think there's always been that mindset of if we can see anything like peak Sebastian Vettel, the guy we saw at especially at Red Bull, but even at some of his higher Ferrari moments, then he'd still be an asset to the grid. So it's good that he's found what looks like could still be a pretty good seat for next season, and with with the investments from Stroll and Co. Looks like it could be, there's potential for it to be a decent seat for, just beyond 2021 as well. So yeah, it's good. It's good for Vettel. It's not good for Perez, but it's still good for Vettel and Formula One, I think.
It's a little bit ironic in a way because right now Sebastian knows exactly how Sergio feels because it, as bad as how Vettel was dumped by Ferrari a few months ago, Racing Point have actually gone one step further in how they've dumped Sergio because he had a contract. He only signed it just literally over 1 year ago. He's only in the first year of what was supposed to be a 3 year deal. His future was supposed to be secure at Racing Point, and like that, it's all been taken away from him. And Sergio explained today that he got the phone call kind of out of nowhere from Lawrence Stroll, and he's out on his ear. You've got to feel sorry for Sergio in this situation, don't you?
Definitely. I mean, he's not really put a foot wrong this season. I mean, he's missed two races with being the only driver to have tested positive coronavirus, at least that we know of anyway. Um, and so yeah, he's and even for the Hungarian Grand Prix, he was supposedly not feeling too well and was competing. So he hasn't had the smoothest of seasons, despite being in one of the quicker cars he's ever had. But it's such a shame for him because not only did he have a justifiable reason to think he was probably safe, it's with not that much of the season, only half the season to go. So most of the other seats are sorted already. He has to sort of, you know, get his stuff together quick and get his head back in the game and go around knocking on the doors and seeing if he can get a seat for 2021. It's going to be it's going to be a bit of a rush for him and a bit panicky, but hopefully it's not the end of Sergio Perez in Formula One.
I, I don't think Sergio has deserved the way he's been treated by Racing Point. Racing Point, I think, have been put in. Lawrence Stroll has been put in a very difficult situation, really, in that he wants to prove to his shareholders that Aston Martin and the rest of his consortium, of course, that it is going to be a serious team. And when you have someone of Sebastian Vettel's caliber available to you at presumably, a cheaper price than he would normally be, if you've still got faith that Vettel still has plenty to offer, you can't really turn away from approaching Sebastian Vettel, even if it means ditching one of your two drivers. It's a very unique situation, though, that Lawrence has found himself in that one of his drivers is his own son. So it's a very, I can see that the problem that Lawrence has faced over the last little while in trying to decide, do I team up Sergio and Sebastian, or do I ditch my son, make Christmas time very, very... Actually, no, sorry, they're Jewish, so it would be Hanukkah for them. But making the Hanukkah dinner table very, very tense by ditching his son to bring in Sebastian. It's... How much thought do you think Lawrence has put into this?
Well, I don't think it would have crossed his mind to drop his son from the team, especially when there's still... He's still quick, is Lance Stroll. He's still a quick driver. He put it on the podium last weekend. So Stroll won't necessarily be a bad driver. It's just he hasn't quite worked up the same reputation and experience and possibly speed as Sergio Perez. That's not to say that Lance can't come up to that level, because there's young, he can still develop and possibly still learn a lot from Vettel. But I don't think anybody thought that he'd for 1 minute, drop his own son. That's even by Formula One standard, that's pretty cruel to imagine. So yeah, I agree. I think it was a tough call, and yeah, he probably had a lot of pressure, get this key signing that Vettel is, and yeah, it's tough. It's tough because at the moment the better lineup would probably be Vettel and Perez, but the second lineup probably Vettel and Stroll. Probably. I mean, some people still have question marks about whether, how, has Vettel still got it, and hopefully he still does. But he's got the experience, and he's got the, he's won many times before, and you'd like to think he's capable of winning again. Do you think that's achievable at Aston Martin?
I think Vettel... Yes, I think Vettel, once he gets out of the pressure and the political atmosphere of Ferrari, I think, like, Ferrari at the best of times are a very politically charged team, and I think it probably wasn't as noticeable when the performance of the car was there and Vettel felt wanted, and he had a teammate who was not interested. Oh, there he is on the screen right now, with Kimi. When himself and Kimi were working under Maurizio Arrivabene, it seemed to work. And Vettel, he started to make these little mistakes while under pressure in 2018. And I think, despite his protests to the contrary, I think Vettel has let that get to him. He's let... we've seen in the past, Vettel's not particularly amazing under pressure. He tends to let his own temper get the better of him sometimes. His own... maybe his own insecurities get the better of him on occasion. And I think the minute that Ferrari said, we're replacing Kimi Raikkonen with Charles Leclerc and we're looking to the future, I think that's the moment where Vettel's head for Ferrari vanished. And while we've seen strong drives from him over the last 12 months, I think the lack of performance on the car now, the nature of how he was dumped by Ferrari, I think there's only one way this can end, and that is exactly how it's playing out. It's a whimpering end to what could have been, a decent lineup, but Ferrari lost faith, and now Vettel's lost faith as well. So, do you think Vettel still has it?
I hope so. I really do hope so because peak Vettel, if w- would be an asset to any Grand Prix if provided with a front running car. And yeah, I think there's scope for, you know, the team formerly known as Jordan, which has gone through many guises and developed a reputation for making,
Jordan.
yeah, flying the flag for Ireland, um, which has developed a reputation for making good cars with not very much budget. If that budget was to increase, you'd like to think that the team would be able to bring the car consistently closer to the front. So if they can do that, then I think Vettel will be capable of winning races, um, which I think for Aston Martin Racing, that's all they really want from Vettel because I think it's going to be a bit much to expect a short turnaround for them to start challenging for championships. I certainly think Vettel will have retired by the time Aston Martin Racing get to that point, probably, because who's going to move Mercedes right now? It looks unthinkable that they could be toppled. Um, but yeah, I think Vettel's certainly capable of winning races with a car that's quick enough. Definitely.
Well, he's finally got his hands on that Merc. Unfortunately, it's a little bit later than he would have liked, and the car is a bit later than what he would have liked. But with the regulations staying the same for 2021, and I think it was Gary Anderson or one of the technical directors who still knocks around the sport has said that if there was a better driver in that racing point this year, it would have already won a race. I'm not convinced by that. I think Mercedes are way too far ahead, and I think that's doing a disservice to Sergio and to Lance's abilities. But Vettel is getting a car next year that is stronger than the Ferrari as it stands, and there is going to be updates for next year, however minor they might be. And I think he'll have a similar type of campaign next year to maybe what Raikkonen had with Lotus back in 2012. One of those strong, consistent, not quite the fastest car, but always there as a kind of thorn in the side for the quicker teams. I think that's what Vettel can hope for next year.
Yeah, and I think he's definitely got a team he will think he can have the measure of, and I think if he comes into Racing Point with that confidence that he can immediately get the better of Lance Stroll, then that'll probably translate into a more comfortable Vettel right from the get-go, and less of the kind of, you know, impatient, petulant, you know, erroneous driving that we have seen from him in the past couple of years. So yeah, hopefully we're going to see Vettel reborn. Yeah, I guess like you say, doing a Raikkonen, doing a 2013 Raikkonen, 2012, 2013, 2012.
2012 and 2013.
Yeah,
2012 is slightly stronger
yeah.
for Kimi, but um, do you think Vettel needs to feel like the undisputed number one in order to perform at his best?
Um, I think I think he needs. It's going to sound like a crap throwaway comment, but I think he needs a quick car to feel at his best because the scenarios in which Vettel has thrived are when he can stick it all, sprint away for the first few laps and eke out that, you know, eke away from the DRS gap and just control the race. And he's been one of the best at doing that in the past. And I guess it might be him thinking that getting to the point where the car can't go any quicker. So if he's seeing targets in front of him that are going quicker than him, may that may get into his head and he may not drive quite as well. I don't know if I'm quite making sense with what I'm saying. Do you understand the point I'm trying to
No, no,
make?
I get you. Yeah, I
Yeah.
get you. Yeah.
Okay. So Yeah, most of his success has definitely come from leading at the front. So I think if he's in a quick enough car, for him to not overdrive things, then I think he could be in a good situation. I think he'll definitely be able to Stroll straight away if Vettel is still as good as what we remember him to be.
Right. Well, Vettel has dominated the headlines today with this news, and everyone. I don't think there's anybody that's unhappy to see that he's found somewhere for next year. We've seen Lewis congratulating him and saying, it's great to see him, and Lewis himself was saying that he thinks that Ferrari hasn't been the best environment for Sebastian over the last little while. I think the only person who's going to be annoyed about the whole situation is Sergio Perez. Do you see Sergio finding refuge, and where?
I can see him finding refuge, but the only place I can see him is Haas, who who by the end of all this are probably going to have the freedom of quite a few drivers. To be honest with you, I think they can easily afford to just sit back and just watch the driver market unfold, and then just pick up some still very good drivers at the end of it. And I think if we ever think about the potential seats that are still available, I don't think I don't think Red Bull, you know, Red Bull have famously not gone for anybody who's outside of their driver program unless they quickly usher them into the driver program. So Red Bull Alpha Tauri, I don't think would happen. Alfa Romeo, um, I can only really see any Alfa Romeo seat going to a Ferrari Junior. What else is left? It's just Haas after that, and that's it. I think is it. Well, obviously the other Mercedes seat is still available, but that's very, very, very likely to be Lewis Hamilton's seat.
You might
Um,
even say impossible for anybody else to be in there.
uh, yeah, yeah, you could say that, but I don't think there's anywhere else available, really. I think that's broadly it for available seats.
Well, the rumor is that he could be off to IndyCar with Penske Racing, but um, let's assume that he's able to find a seat in Formula One. There's obviously the fact that Sergio has significant Mexican backing from Carlos Slim, and apparently last year in the world of NASCAR, Gene Haas and Carlos Slim had a falling out. So that might play a part in like Esteban Gutierrez obviously had there with had Carlos Slim as a sponsor as well. So there is that background between Haas and Carlos Slim and having a Mexican driver on board. Apparently those bridges have been burned, but I don't think either of them are, they're businessmen. I can't see, if Perez is the better option, I can't see that getting in the way of bringing in Perez into Haas. I think Perez and Hulkenberg, I think, would be a very good lineup for Haas next year.
I agree. Yeah, and to be honest, I don't think Gunter Steiner is someone who would really. Uh, I think he would insist on a driver that he wants to have in in one of the seats. Do you reckon? I think Steiner would put up a fight if he really wanted Perez in the seat and probably persuade people that it's the right decision.
He's a persuasive guy, Gunther Steiner.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I think
um,
so.
I think Haas are approaching 2021, or I think they want a fresh start. There's obviously all these rumours that Roman Grosjean is out of a seat. There's less rumours about Kevin Magnussen, but at the same time, Kevin's not setting the world alight either, and hasn't really done so. There isn't really any standout moments for Kevin in the races over the last 12 months, 18 months. So
Uh, I
Austria
think
qualifying last year was great, but that's qualifying, not the race.
Yeah, I mean, he did a good job in Budapest, I thought. I mean, both Haas drivers took a punt on going onto slick tires at the start of the slick tires, intermediates. Slick, which one was it? They went on a different rubber at the start of the race anyway, and took advantage of it to leap up the order. And it was Magnussen
Yeah,
who was leading the charge then, and I thought he acquitted himself very well in that race. So maybe
yeah.
it's I don't know. It would be a shame to see Magnussen go. I think, but I think he's probably done less wrong than Grosjean in the last couple of years. But yeah, like you say, in terms of standout performances, they're probably still quite few and far between. But is the Haas car right now something that you can really put in a good performance with? Possibly not. I think I think the Haas and the are hampered by the Ferrari power units to a certain extent. So yeah, it is a bit of a lottery at Haas for the two seats, isn't it? Like you say, you got Perez, Hulkenberg, Magnussen, Grosjean. I think Steiner today said they've got just
There's
short of
there's
10
loads of options.
drivers.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, going back to the original point, I do hope Perez keeps his seat in Formula One because I think he's still quick enough. Definitely, I think he's still worthy of a seat and would still be an asset to a Formula One team.
I'd like to see Perez stay on and find a seat, and that's why, like, my guess for next year, and this is based on nothing but the rumours we've seen already and everything, is that at Haas it'll be Perez and Hulkenberg. That's just my guess for next year. But we have a question that I want to put to you, and that's from Alan Birmingham. And he says, how long do you think the Aston Martin shareholders will put up with Lance Stroll underperforming? Do you think he's underperforming?
N- No, I don't think he is at the moment. I mean, if if it got to the situation where they were regularly in these kind of positions where they could sneak more podiums and wins. I think, to be honest, the Italian Grand Prix was, when you think about it, a bit of a missed opportunity for Lance Stroll because going at the
He
restart,
messed up the restart. Yeah,
he was he was the favourite, yeah, and didn't get a goal behind him and couldn't catch back up, and yeah, that was an opportunity missed, but it was kind of disguised by the fact that it was his first podium for Racing Point, so it was just basking in the jubilance of the entire podium at the time, which was, mostly pretty delighted. So I don't think he's necessarily undering at the moment, but if Racing Point don't keep regularly challenging for podiums in the car that they have, which is supposedly kind of second or third quickest car, then there may be questions asked. But I think the questions will start being asked if Vettel comes in straight away and is immediately on top of him, immediately beating him, and wiping the floor with him. I think that's when the questions of Lance Stroll would start coming.
yeah. So let's say hypothetically Australia rolls around next year, assuming we have a normal calendar, and Vettel is consistently half a second to a second quicker than Lance Stroll every single race. Lawrence surely can't overlook that.
It's, I mean, he can. Um, I'm sure there'd be ways of reining Vettel a little bit just to
You think they
make.
do that?
I, I don't know. I never say never in Formula One,
They're not
but
Ferrari.
oh, I. um, yeah, there would definitely be some questions asked, but it may be a question of uh, would Lawrence Stroll be outvoted by other members of the board overruled and instructed to sort the driver situation out, and then I could see it getting messy actually if the team wants Lance Stroll out. Yeah, that could be next season's drama.
Absolutely. I can't wait already.
Yeah. Well, who knows? I mean, this could be the opportunity that Lance Stroll is looking for. You know, he may do well against, you know, what might be, unbeknownst to us, a four-time world champion in the downswing of his career, ready for being beaten. You
Maybe
know,
Vettel is actually crap now, and next year we'll highlight that.
delicately put, yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it's entirely
it could
possible.
be, it may be part of the Stroll tactics, you know, to make Lance look good. Who knows?
Yeah, it's a valid question, and the one thing about it as well is they haven't said how long the contract duration is for. We only know for certain that it is for 2021, and Vettel said the intention is to be a long-term partnership, but obviously there's a performance clause there that's been put in, presumably on both sides, to make sure that if Vettel or Racing Point don't hit certain standards next year, that either party can walk away. So I would presume that it's a 2-year deal with an option on the second year, so that Racing Point can ditch Vettel if he is terrible, or Vettel could walk away from Racing Point if he's not happy, and they don't hit certain performance clauses. So that would be my interpretation of the way the deal was announced today.
I think that's a good interpretation. I think they'd have good grounds to be able to put such clauses in, seeing as they know what, you know, roughly where the 2021 car is going to be into, you know, by comparison to the rest of the field, because the rule changes, uh, they have to use the same car for 2021.
Yeah.
So yeah, if there is a time in Formula One to put a performance clause in, then next year would be it. So yeah, I think that's understandable.
Luke Key has written in with a take on what he thinks is. I'm assuming he, so sorry if not. Um, on the guesses for where the drivers might end up. Perez and whoever wins Formula 2 to Alfa Romeo, with Giovinazzi and Hulkenberg to Haas.
So juggling about the Ferrari drivers a little bit.
And Ferrari associated drivers, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's a good take. Personally, I don't think Giovinazzi is going to stay in Formula One next year, unless he has a stellar second half of this year. What do you think?
I mean, I think he's looked a little bit better this season.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And his starts have been incredible. I think he's probably the starter of the season. Is that a thing? I don't know.
Magnussen's the starter of the year this year. Magnussen has been a rocket ship off the line this year.
Reckon?
Oh yeah, he's gained on average I think 4 or 5 places per race nearly,
Okay.
and
Well,
then he promptly falls back to the back again.
that's a shame, isn't it? But yeah, but I think Giovinazzi's I think he's done okay so far, but yeah, I think Ferrari will probably want to be seeing just a little bit more from him. But yeah, and then obviously the questions about Kimi Raikkonen about whether he'll stay as well. If they do think Giovinazzi is worthy of keeping in Formula One, I don't think they'll kind of move him sideways to Haas. I think that will probably be a bit too destabilizing for him and maybe a bit, you know, more effort than it's worth. You know, it's still beyond, you know, it's still something that could happen because Ferrari could still have a little bit of say with, you know, the teams that they supply. I mean, they've certainly put juniors into the Haas team previously, so so there's room for negotiation there. But yeah, I do agree with I think they'll put someone from Formula Two into one of their Ferrari-powered teams next year, and it's a huge question as to who it's going to be because it's a close-fought Formula 2 season, and they've got on their roster and performing well, Rob Schwartzman, Callum Ilott, and of course Mick Schumacher, who were all capable of winning the title, and therefore all tantalisingly close to a Formula One seat. So I do agree that one of those is quite likely to get. But who do you think that could be then, Thomas?
Before I say that, Loop says that Giovinazzi could be the next Luca Bador by being a permanent Ferrari third driver. Harsh, but entirely possible. See, the thing about Giovinazzi is he does have the pace. There's nothing wrong with his pace. It's just every time he races, something just seems to go wrong. And Kimi Raikkonen, who is racing as a hobby at the end of his career, is still able to beat him. That's not really a great sign for a driver who's supposed to be progressing.
I'm trying to think because do Ferrari have a permanent test driver at the moment? Because they can't still be using Luca or Marc Genet.
Marginet is kind of the demo driver and the Corsa Clienti guy, and
Because he must be at least 58 or something.
he's about 102, I think, at this stage. But
Yeah.
no, I think I think Giovinazzi will lose his seat. I think he'll be put up maybe in GT racing, or he'll stay, I think, within the Ferrari family because he strikes me as the kind that he will do his utmost to stay with Ferrari, even if that means leaving Formula One behind. Maybe settling into a kind of a simulator role like Pascal Wehrlein or like Brendan Hartley have done. But Giovinazzi, I think, will lose out. And I think out of all of them, Mick Schumacher, I think, is very much the one being lined up to move into the Alpha. At this point, I think it's actually Mick's seat to lose next year. And I think at Alpha, what's going to happen is they'll convince Kimi Raikkonen to stay on for another year. Because why the hell wouldn't he? Kimi has literally nothing to lose. He's got the handiest gig in the world at the moment. And he lives in Switzerland. He lives near the factory. All he has to do is, go racing 20 times a year or whatever. He gets well paid for it. And no one expects any more of him. I can't see why he'd give that up for at least another year and bank, another couple of million. But the benefit to Alfa and Ferrari would be that they could put in someone like Mick Schumacher and have him learn, because Mick doesn't appear to be the quickest learner in the world. We've seen that in Formula 3 and Formula 2. It seems to take him a while to find some momentum. But I think if Mick was able to learn from Kimi, we know Kimi's not really the teaching type, but I think the marketability of it is too much to overlook. And I think the fact that Mick would look up to Kimi as a rival of Michael, I think that I think that's the lineup that Alpha will end up going with. Even though I think that Mick arguably is slightly slower than, say, Robert Schwartzman and Callum Ilott over a single lap. I think at the moment, Ilott and Schwartzman have a slight pace edge. But I think Mick Schumacher, I think it's his seat to lose, I think.
I think the Schumacher-Raikkonen combination might be a bit too much to avoid as a sort of poetic fantasy. I think at the moment, if there was, if Mick Schumacher was to be confirmed at Alfa Romeo, tomorrow to be in for 2021, I would consider that to be very harsh on Rob Schwartzman and Callum Ilott. I'd consider it to be very harsh. I think they should at least wait until the Formula 2 season is at least closer to a conclusion before kicking a Ferrari driver in the guts. because imagine if you've like raced really well all season, close to a Formula 2 title that's not even anywhere near its conclusion, but you've already been judged to have not been good enough, even though you haven't been proven to not be good enough. That would hurt, and I think it would be grossly unfair to call it at this early stage. So I hope it goes on, and I desperately hope that there's a genuine, almost like a shootout for the second Alpha seat. If one was to be available, I wouldn't wish any bad luck on Giovinazzi or Raikkonen. I wouldn't want them to kind of have a dramatic dip, or any misfortune or any like that. But if a seat was available, I hope it comes down to a class shootout in Formula 2.
Yeah, but there's also the thing that Mattia Binotto said, where he said that it won't come down directly to the results on the track, and it's more a general evaluation of the driver's progress and I presume their performance ceiling and how much potential they see in the drivers. So to me, that makes it sound like Ferrari are lining up the possibility that no matter who they put in at Alpha, it might not be the person who wins the Formula 2 title. So, like you were saying there about it being a shootout between, say, Schwartzman, Eilert, and Schumacher, if one of them was to win the title, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're guaranteed the Alfa Romeo seat. And I think that's what Binotto is preparing the drivers for by saying that. And the fact that Schumacher is rumoured to be testing for or taking part in practice sessions this year with Alfa Romeo between now and the end of the season, I think all the indications are there that they fully intend on putting Schumacher in that Alpha next year if they decide Giovinazzi is not good enough and if Raikkonen retires.
I mean, yeah, and it's hard to ignore the poetic combination of Raikkonen Schumacher lineup.
Oh yeah,
But at the same time, I would just be feeling that it would be harsh. I can understand it, but I'm fully expecting it to come down to well, that's the harsh business of motorsport for 1-2 drivers this season.
and we've seen Ferrari are perfectly capable of being that harsh.
Oh yeah. There's going to be
All right,
some heartbreak.
so call it for me. Your predictions. So who's going to be at Alpha?
Ooh, next season, I've got a feeling Raikkonen's going to say that he's had enough, and it's going to be Giovinazzi and Schumacher. I think
Right,
I think I was kind of edging away from a Schumacher, from putting Schumacher in there, but I think you've kind of convinced me that it's not a shoo-in, but it's they're setting themselves up for it. Yeah.
Okay, and my prediction for Alpha is Raikkonen and Schumacher. And who do you see at Haas?
Stick about 6 names in and just draw them out of a hat. Perez. Do I see Perez there? I don't know. For some reason, I can't see them dropping Magnussen, but I can't reason why. Perez and either Hulkenberg or Magnussen.
Alan Birmingham says Perez and Magnussen. I think it'll be Perez and Hulkenberg. I think Hulk is finally going to get his return.
I'd like him to. I think he's got, he's developed this kind of underdog character, isn't he? That everyone loves an underdog, don't they? I mean, it was great when he came back to the British Grand Prix, or whichever one it was, the 70th anniversary, both of them. The races at Silverstone. He came back for the races at Silverstone.
Everyone loves Hulk.
Yeah, everyone was just willing him on, and when he qualified third, was it? Or was he second, third? Yeah,
Third in the second race, yeah.
third. Yeah, everyone was just dreaming. Just he could get the podium. But yeah, obviously it didn't quite come to be. But yeah, everyone loves an underdog, and I would like for Hulkenberg to be back on the grid, definitely. So I
You've
hope.
sorry, go on.
So I guess what I'm saying is I hope Perez and Hulkenberg, but my, for some reason my gut's saying Perez and Magnussen, just for that continuity at Haas,
Okay,
considering
well,
they are still quite a young team.
we'll have to wait and see on that one. But you've given me the opportunity to segue nicely because you were talking there about a very popular result with Hulkenberg getting third. I don't think he can get much more popular than Pierre Gasly winning in Italy last weekend for AlphaTauri. And oh, my Siri has gone off. I'll just turn that off. Right, so Pierre Gasly, and all week, he's Red Bull will turn performing to the level we want. We're going to swap Albon and Gasly back again.
Even if Red Bull are thinking that, I don't think we're gonna know about it until it happens. Um, and to be honest, I don't think Gasly's giving it the big one. I think it's probably just if Red Bull call you up, would you be ready? And he's just turned around and said, well, yes, and I thought of it, but
It's more the
I
statement that
think
he said he thinks he should be rewarded for it.
yeah, okay. Well, I don't think anybody would begrudge it, you know. Um, but if AlphaTauri is really doing as good as they seem to, you know, if they carry on this form, then is there any real reason to swap them yet? Because if job, then it's just more income for the second Red Bull team through the constructors
Yeah,
championship. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for him to stay there. And also, whilst Gasly's doing his reputation the world of good, might that be the thing that kind of facilitates a way out of it? Because if he goes to Red Bull again and can't compete with Max Verstappen, then he's
it'll look
a,
bad
l-
on him.
it will, yeah. So maybe make hay while the sun shines and negotiate a lucrative move to somewhere for 2022, maybe.
Well, what I see happening is nothing. I think Verstappen will be kept on at Red Bull Racing, and I think AlphaTauri will stick with Gasly, but they'll replace Kvyat, I think, with Yuki Tsunoda, assuming that Tsunoda doesn't make an absolute hames of things between now and the end of the year. So I think that'll be the change at the Red Bull camp. But
Yeah,
uh, yeah, sorry, go on. I interrupted.
I was just gonna add. I think Honda would really really appreciate a young hotshot Japanese driver in there as well, and I think that might be a bit too much for them to. Yeah, I think if Tsunoda can still carry on proving that he's got the pace, then yeah, I can definitely see that as well. Yeah,
Okay, well, we've talked a lot about the driver market. There is a race this weekend. Uh,
yeah.
we're at uh, we're at a new venue, which is normally used for MotoGP. It's Mugello. It's fast. It's apparently quite abrasive on the tarmac. It's apparently all the circuit characteristics are that it's like Spa meets Silverstone meets Suzuka, and all everything points towards it being a Mercedes circuit. That's pretty much a given at every circuit this year.
Everywhere's a
But
Mercedes circuit. Yeah.
yeah, but in particular, this one could be a Mercedes circuit, which is ironic because Ferrari owned the venue. But Ferrari 1000 races this weekend. They're making a big song and dance about it with, and rightly so. They're around 71 years now at this stage. They've got the nice new burgundy livery, and there's pictures there up in the top left that you'll see. The new race suits, the new livery. I actually really like the new livery. I think it looks really
It's
good.
very nice.
But they've got a lot to celebrate in terms of their past. Not a whole lot to celebrate in terms of the present at the moment. I think they'll be lucky to get points this weekend. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the track's going to be quite as. It's definitely not going to be as power hungry as Monza. I think less so than Spa as well. It seems like a fast circuit, so it may still be a bit of a struggle for them, which would be a shame. But with that being said, I don't think they look necessarily handy in the corners either. So I think most circuits present a bit of a problem for Ferrari anyway. So I think they've just got to fill the weekend with as much kind of off-circuit distractions as they can. Make a big song and dance about their 1000th race without without really looking at the 1000th race. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's at least they'll look good. It's a great looking car, so you know, props to them for that. And
I know
that's
you haven't
about it.
watched I know you haven't watched all 1000 races, but from your time watching Formula One, what's your standout memory of Ferrari? What's the moment where you just kind of went, "Oh, I get why people like this. I get why people love Ferrari."
Oh, I mean, you just have to see any Ferrari win at the Italian Grand Prix, and it's just a sea of red, and it's just you know it just makes you want to spout cliches like passion and soul and tifosi and things like that. It's hard not to have the team kind of close to your heart when you're kind of looking at so many of these famous scenes throughout Formula One. And a lot of people's memories would either Ferrari winning or another team defeating their fierce rival Ferrari. They've been so integral to the sport, and you can't it's tough to imagine Formula One without Ferrari. And just as from personal highlights, I was a huge uh, Schumacher fan. So when he kind of runs with Ferrari, all dominating, you know, man and machine in perfect harmony, period in Formula One, I thought it was just awe-inspiring. And the 2002 season, 2004, although they were really dominant seasons and probably slightly damaging to Formula One, me personally, I just couldn't help but just be amazed by just them being the kings of Formula One. I thought it was just incredible to watch as a I don't know, 12, 14-year old, something like that. And um, yeah, and and although some people might not be too happy about the amount of say that they have in Formula One, you, you know they're just too valuable to the sport, in my opinion. What about you? What's your kind of personal memories or highlights of Ferrari? I know you were a bit of a Hakkinen fan back in the day.
I was absolutely Hakkinen and McLaren. They were that was my they were my favorites back in the day when I started watching Formula One, and Schumacher and Ferrari were the pantomime villains of the piece. Whenever you saw Schumacher coming out of the pits, and you saw the iconic red helmet against the Ferrari, you couldn't help but just go, there's true. He was the villain, and I just loved that whole sense of drama that he was able to give to the sport as a result of that. And it's only as I got older and started to kind of understand the sport a bit more that I started kind of appreciating more exactly what Ferrari and Michael did for the sport. And for me, the highlights last year, I was at Monza covering the Italian Grand Prix, and I got to experience Charles Leclerc's win, and that was just amazing. And the atmosphere, and to see how just crazy the Tifosi went, that was an experience. Um, yeah, it was incredible. But going back further than that, I think the 2006 race, where Michael announced his retirement after winning the race, and Kimi Raikkonen finished second after the two dueling. And it was such a personal duel because obviously Kimi was taking Michael's seat, and the McLaren hadn't been good that year, and Kimi put it on pole, and then Michael won the race. And I thought that whole, you could really feel just how much it meant to Michael at the time, and how he didn't want to leave at the time. That's the whole story, that Luca de Montezemolo kind of pushed Michael out and even took kind of possession of Michael's retirement by making the announcement before Michael could. But I think that moment was a very standout moment in terms of just how important it was for Ferrari and for Michael back then. And I suppose then the other one would be Japan 2000, when Michael won the title for the first time. And even though he'd won the title before, you could see how much that meant to him when he was slapping the wheel, and he looked like a little rabbit, on the steering wheel, and the air horns were going off. And even though Hakkinen was defeated, and 12-year-old me wasn't happy about that, um, it was an incredible moment. And I think that first win for Ferrari always seems to count more for the drivers than other victories. And you could see it even, say, with Vettel in 2015 when he won Malaysia. He sat down on the podium and was in tears. This is a four-time world champion, and yet somehow the minute he took a win while dressed in red, it somehow seemed to mean something extra to him. So I think 1,000 races, well done. They're not going anywhere anytime soon, and yes, they're in the doldrums at the moment, but they are an independent company. They're an independent manufacturer, and they're still doing everything that a pure Formula One team is supposed to do. And regardless of your feelings on the politics, or how they do things, or how they treat individual members of the team or whatever, they are still doing exactly what Formula One is supposed to be, and you can't help but admire that.
Absolutely, totally agree. Yeah, here's to another 1,000 from them, hopefully.
Well, at the rate Liberty Media are adding races, they'll be celebrating that in 2025.
Very good.
But just another anniversary being celebrated this weekend is on Saturday. It's 20 years exactly since Kimi Raikkonen drove a Formula One car for the first time. And weirdly enough, it was a Sauber, and it was at Mugello. My mind has been blown by this because of the fact that, like, you don't see Formula One cars at Mugello at all, really. So for it to happen in such a way that Kimi is driving for the exact same team at the exact same venue 20 years after he first stepped into a Formula One car, as he now closes in on becoming the sport's most experienced driver, I think that's an amazing coincidence.
I think it's great. I mean, Formula One has a bit of a habit of doing things like this on occasion, and it's if you'd have, I guess if you'd have spoken to 20-year-old Kimi Raikkonen at the time and said in 20 years' time Alfa Romeo, in the 20s, and it probably been like no, go away. But In fact, even talking to him in 2019, he wouldn't have imagined that he'd have been going to Mugello. So, such is the last-minute nature of how this calendar's gone together. So,
It's
it's
been a
yeah,
crazy year.
yeah. So it's a remarkable little It's gone full circle almost, and with fundamentally the same team as well. It's still Sauber.
Yeah, I know Peter Sauber's not involved, and obviously there's the Alfa Romeo money now, and they're not technically called Sauber, but it's only a name change, and they are still the same team. I just think it's a wonderful bookend, I think, to his career, especially if he does retire at the end of this season. If he does decide to walk away, that basically Mugello and Sauber have been kind of at either end of his career.
Mm.
And never at any other point in his career. There's never been a race at Mugello. He's only driven for Sauber in his first and possibly last year. And I think there's wonderful synchronization or simplicity to the whole scenario as it stands.
Yeah,
And
it's tidy,
just
isn't
it is, yeah. I love little things like that. But what's your favorite Kimi moment from the last 20 years?
I mean, some of his sound bites are pretty class, but off the top of my head, Drive at Suzuka 2005 was just something unbelievable. What was it? 18th that he won from? 18th?
17th, I
17th.
think. 17th or 18th. Either
Very
way,
far
it's
back.
pretty far
Yeah,
back.
and
Yeah.
to have the nerve to keep chasing down the leaders, and not just be content with getting a podium, chasing down the win, and nabbing it on the lap. I mean, that's a mega drive, and it's gone down in history as one of the finest, and rightly so, definitely. So yeah, that's my kind of first Kimi moment, but the back end of his 2007 season as well, where he had to win both the final two races to have a chance of taking the title, and he did quite, in very well as well, and
Yeah.
took the title. But yeah, how about you?
Pretty much the same moments, to be
Mm.
honest. Although you've obviously got to throw in Abu Dhabi 2012 because it was such a after the initial fallout with Ferrari in 2009, 2010, and him being kind of pushed out of the sport for a while, and he went off to NASCAR. It just looked like a 2007, a recent Formula One world champion with Ferrari, and his career had slipped to the extent where he was crashing trucks on a NASCAR track in, I think it was North Carolina, like driving I think it was Perky Jerky or something was the sponsor on it. It wasn't very becoming of someone who'd reached the absolute peak of motorsport. And then for him to be able to find a way back into Formula One with a reasonably competitive seat, and then take it to the point where he was able to win a race and hold off Fernando Alonso's Ferrari to take the win. And, especially the sound bites as well that he offered up during the race. I think it was one of those Kimi magic moments that we've seen on occasion. You take away the championships, you take away the disappointments of 2003 and 2005, and the mediocrity of 2008 and 2009. Just on occasion, Kimi is capable of an absolute magic moment on track. And I think Abu Dhabi 2012 is probably the prime example of that, because you got everything. You got the driving, you got the sound bites, you got the circumstances of the win. And I think that would probably be my favourite Kimi moment. And it's quite a while ago now, but he's still here.
Hopefully he can deliver at least one or two uh, nice little moments before he fingers crossed.
Absolutely. Luke, we're coming up on an hour, and this has gone on a bit longer than I originally planned. Thank you very much for joining me, and to everyone watching, thanks very much for your comments and questions. Hopefully you'll be able to join us again. We'll do another one live probably over the weekend, maybe on Sunday evening after the Grand Prix at some point. you can follow me on Twitter at ThomasMar on F1, and I'll say when the next live video is going to be. If you have any questions as well that you'd like us to talk about or address, you can send them in to me as well on Twitter. If you want to follow Luke, what's your Twitter?
I am at Lucas Murph.
At Lucas Murph. So,
Not
guys,
Luca
thank you very
Smurf.
much for... What is it?
Not Luca Smurf. Lucas Murph.
Lucas Murph. Cool. Thanks, everyone, and thank you very much, Luke, for joining me.
Worries.